Once again, thank you for joining. My name is Christopher, and I work at the Secretariat. And if I could just ask my colleagues in the Secretariat to unshare the screen. And I'll be your host for today. So for the event today, we have set aside 1.5 hours to provide you with the latest knowledge you need ahead of the first call for applications. We had hoped to meet all of you face-to-face in Bruges last week, but due to the current situation, as you all know, we have decided to postpone the event until May next year. We have, however, already hosted some events, some webinars that will enable you and support you in developing projects for the new program period. And you can actually already find them on our website. Hopefully a lot of you have already joined either the webinars or seen the recordings of them. The webinars that you can find on our website, they cover the topics: soft launch of the new program, introduction to partnership, program rules, intervention logic and targets, and then the concept of small-scale projects, which is new to our program. However, we did not want to leave you without any further support, and that is why we have this mini Get Ready event online today. So once again, welcome. Before we get started, I would like to introduce you to the people that are involved from the program in today's event. First of all, I would like to introduce you to the national contact points. The national contact points are your direct access to the national level for our program. I would like the NCPs to present here today to just raise your virtual hand and unmute yourself. So once I mention you, you can just say hi and perhaps wave, and then we all know who you are. And I will introduce you one by one. First of all, I'm going to introduce our contact point from Flanders, Sandra van de Wiel.
Oh, yes. Very good. Thank you.
I'm really
good
hoping
morning, everyone.
The pronunciation of the names are good.
Oh, it's good. Thank you. I would have been very happy to welcome you all in Belgium for the meeting. Unfortunately, it cannot happen, but I will be happy to see you in May. And thank you to the JS to organize this webinar.
Thank you so much, Sandra. From France, we have Caroline Gauthier.
Thank you, Christopher. Good morning to all. We are very happy to join the North Sea Program Interact program, and we are really eager to begin working with you all. Thank you.
And we are really happy to have you on board in our North Sea family. From Norway, we have Kate Clark.
Yes, hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome. And hi from a very snowy, cold Norway on the west coast. And I'm really looking forward to getting started in this new program. So it's great to see you all, so many people here.
Thank you so much, Kate. And from Sweden, we have Robin Stenström.
Hi, everyone, and good morning. Robin Stenström, coming from a very cold and snowy Sweden as well, here at the west coast in Gothenburg. Happy to see so many people taking part of this event today, and thank you to the JS for organizing it. And looking forward to see as many as possible in May in Bruges.
Thank you so much, Robin. From the Netherlands, we should have Albin Hunja. Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning.
And from Germany, we have our new contact point, Annika Retz.
Yes, that's me. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me already. I am Annika, and I am the new national contact point. And unfortunately, my current boss is trying to keep me as long as possible in my current position. So I'm looking forward to start working with you in the beginning of February. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Annika. That is the contact points joining us today. We do not have a contact point from Denmark. From the Secretariat, I'm joined by my colleagues, Marie, Jesper, Peter, Jenny, Hans, Femke, Annemieke, and Sophie. I know it's a lot of names, but you will meet all of them later during the event. My colleague Lisa is helping out on the technicalities. Then I should have shared a room and video feed with my colleague Sarah, who is our program and project coordinator. But as the situation has also changed in Denmark, we actually have a lot of snow. So that is why we are all joining remotely this event today. But perhaps, Sarah, I can just ask you for a weather report from Aalborg.
Absolutely, Christopher. Yes, welcome everyone. We are very, very happy to see all of you here. It's a very exciting time in our program. Unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate with us. We got a huge snowstorm here, especially in the north of Denmark, but all over the country, and there was traffic chaos. So we're all joining, in fact, from home. A little anecdote, 27 people had to sleep last night at IKEA. They got stuck. 6 customers and 21 workers were sleeping in the showroom last night. The latest report is that they had quite a good experience. So yeah, anyway, welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And that's actually, I think, why they now have signs next to all of the furnitures they have on display, saying that it has been tested on real people. But if I can just ask to get our presentation on screen. So just the technicality, very brief. During the 1.5 hours we have set aside for delivering the content, we have also set aside time to answer your questions. Which brings me to the fact that we are using Slido. As you can see in the upper right corner of the screen, then there's a small blue post-it saying slido.com, and then you can see some login details to that. If you have any questions, please go to Slido and put it in there. Please do not put it in the chat in Zoom, because that is really hard to manage during the event. If you do not have any questions, but still go to slido.com, perhaps you will see a question that is also highly relevant for you. And what you can do is that you can just like the question, and by doing so you are bumping up the questions, and hence you're also increasing the chances that we manage to answer that question during the webinar today. Then I should mention that the webinar is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please just turn your camera off, and also rename yourself, because that is the maximum degree of anonymity that we can offer you today. The recording of the event will be posted on our website and made available as soon as possible after the event has finished today. Let's move on to the next slide. Once again, go to Slido and put in your questions if you have any. You just have to enter North Sea as the code. Next slide, please. On the agenda today, we have an introduction from Sarah. We have a look into the priorities of the new program by my colleagues Femke, Jesper, Peter, Annemieke, and Hans. Then we will move on to some advice on what we should remember to put in the project management section of the application form, followed by some good points to remember for communication and what you should put in the application form. This is done by Sophie. And then last but not least, my colleague Femke will introduce us to the current possibilities for partner search that we have in our program. Just again, remember, if you have any questions, put them in Slido. Also during all the interventions, we will not stop between the interventions, but all questions will be answered at the end. Without further ado, I would like to hand over the floor to Sarah, who will provide us an outlook to the near future. Sarah, please, the word is yours.
Thank you very much, Christopher. And again, welcome to everyone. The update that I give you right now will be quite short, actually, and it will focus on the preparation for the first call, some important information to those of you who are hoping to apply in call 1. As Christopher explained, we had a soft launch of the program on 1st of November, and a lot of the details about the program more generally were made available at that time. That webinar recording is online, as is the presentation. And so I encourage you, if you have not already done so, to check out either the recording or the presentation for those details. Today, I will focus solely on the most pertinent information that we have not yet made available in a webinar. So I would like to start with the deadlines for Call 1. We have 2, and I would like to preface that by explaining to those of you, especially who are new to our program, that we have what is called a 2-stage application procedure. And this 2-stage application procedure is relevant for our regular projects. The 2 stages are called the expression of interest and the full application. We also have a new type of project in this program period called the small scale project. We also had a webinar about small scale projects, which is available on our website, the recording and the presentation. Our small scale project initiative has a 1-stage application procedure. So the deadlines are split between these. Let me explain. On the 7th of March next year, we will have a deadline for the 1st stage for regular projects. That's called the expression of interest, as well as the small scale project applications. On the 22nd of April, we have a deadline for our full application, or the 2nd stage of our application procedure. And Call 1 is a bit special because we have an exception to our rule of the 2-stage application procedure in Call 1. And that is that you may apply as an expression of interest. If approved, you would then go to Call 2 for the full application, or you can go straight to the full application in Call 1, but only for Call 1. Next slide, please. I would also like to tell you about what is available now. In addition to the fact that applicants can already start working in our online monitoring system on small scale projects and expressions of interest, all you have to do is go to our website and create a username, and then you may start to actually enter applications for the expression of interest or the small scale project. We will be making the full application form available soon, so please watch our website for that. In addition to that, we have fact sheets now published online. We have published 20 of these, and our fact sheets, for those of you not familiar with this scheme, those are the rules for the program. So those have been decided by our program preparation group. They have been approved, and that is the set of rules by topic that you need to follow in order to fill in a good application and to understand what rules underlie the applications. The fact sheets range from eligibility rules to the intervention logic and indicators to the assessment criteria. So please make yourself familiar with these, and if you have questions, let us know. In addition, we are preparing video tutorials on how to fill in the applications. We will be putting these online as well. So they take you step by step through an expression of interest, through a small scale project, and later the full application. So stay tuned on the website for those as well. Third, we will be publishing a guidance note on applying in general, but also with special conditions for Call 1. And this should be ready and published on our website by mid-December. And finally, Christopher has mentioned this, but it's worth mentioning once more. We are making help available to those of you who have a project idea and would like some feedback, or who are looking for project partners. And Femke will tell us more about that at the end of this session before the Q&A. Thank you, and back to you, Christopher.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for letting us know what we can expect for the near future. Let's move on to the next agenda item. The future program will, like the previous program, consist of 4 thematic priorities. And then in addition to this, for the next program period, we will also have 3 cross-cutting spotlight themes. My colleagues, or some of my colleagues, will now take us through them. And first on stage is Femke, who will introduce us to priority 1. Femke, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christopher. I'll start by introducing priority 1. Priority 1 is on robust and smart economies in the North Sea region. And in this priority, we're looking at giving people and companies in the region the opportunity to step up and for regions to maintain their innovation levels or align developments between regions. So this priority 1 is divided into specific objectives. And the first one is 1.1, research and innovation. Research and innovation is, of course, central to a robust and smart economy that the North Sea region already is. And with this research and innovation, we aim to drive the shift towards the green and digital societies that also very much come back in the other priorities. If we look at the challenges that we are facing in the region, of course, the North Sea region is a very innovative region, but there are still variations between regions, especially if we look at the options and the opportunities there are in rural regions. They can benefit from extra attention. Also, we can encourage collaboration between innovative SMEs. And overall, we're looking to maintain and improve the competitiveness, especially for SMEs. Besides this focus on the small and medium-sized companies, we're also looking at the public sector. An innovative, cost-efficient, and digitally effective public sector is an enabler of a robust economy. So with priority 1, we also aim to deliver public services effectively and efficiently. If we can, yeah, thanks. Now, if we look at the actions that would fit under this priority, we aim to offer a supportive environment for innovation and to foster knowledge and technology transfer. And this is especially crucial in order to successfully deal with the green transition and the integration of all the areas that are part of the North Sea region. And innovation in this priority is meant in broad terms, so it can be related to the kind of traditional image of innovation of technical solutions, but also looking at public services, societal challenges, and it aims to create an effective innovation ecosystem rather than to offer direct support to individual actors. You can think of actions that support the development and implementation of new technologies, products, processes, services to address problems there are across the region. In concrete terms, you can think of stimulating knowledge and technology transfer, the uptake of research and results, and improving access to SME support in rural areas. And the public sector can play a kind of role to stimulate this innovation here. If we look at the next slide for the impact, we're looking to improve the framework conditions for innovation and to reduce the barriers to innovation and strengthen regional innovation capacities across the region. So we're looking at reduction of barriers, increase SME public sector innovation, increase the uptake of technologies, and reduce the gap in performance in non-urban areas. So beyond working towards these impacts, the specific objective might also contribute to a wider, more long-term effect, such as the retention and creation of jobs in the region. If we continue to the second specific objective of priority 1 is on smart specialization, industrial transition, and entrepreneurship. And we focus there on the strength of the region and the comparative advantage that we already have. But also here, we're still facing challenges that we would like to address. Societies, labor markets, they keep changing. And of course, will continue to change. And we're looking to support a workforce that has up-to-date knowledge that can fit with the needs of the labor market. And here also, we're looking again, especially at small and medium-sized enterprises. So in order to keep working on this match, we're looking to strengthen digital and entrepreneurial skills, address inequalities between urban and rural areas, and overall it is about securing strong and innovative knowledge economies for the future. Actions that could fit under here, we can look into tools that overcome the skill gap, collaboration between organizations and at different levels, knowledge transfer between countries and regions, and overall to improve human capital with improved and new skills. And this one has a broad thematic approach. So that means that it is not limited to certain focus areas or sectors, but what we aim to do is look at actions that support cross-sectoral approach, look at the territorial differences again between the cities and the regions, and we're looking at actions that are inclusive, follow the citizens-oriented approach, and of course they should all be demand-driven. And then the last slide on priority 1 is about the impact. If we're looking at direct impact, we would like to see updated digital skills and knowledge, improved entrepreneurial opportunities and competences. And this should then lead to an increased alignment between the needs of the labor market and the skill sets that are available, and increase the level of education also in rural areas. And the end result or impact of these actions would be new jobs, increased productivity, and overall increase of competitiveness of the region. That was it for priority 1. I would like to give the floor to Jesper for priority 2.
Thank you, Femke. My name is Jesper Jönsson, and as you can see, I'm actually one of the few people that actually made it to the office today. And I will guide you through priority 2. Next slide, please. So, as you know, the European Commission launched its Green Deal package this summer. And the Green Deal package simply outlines how the European Union will become a more modern, resource-efficient and competitive economy. In practice, the European deal will improve the well-being of citizens by providing renovated, energy-efficient buildings, cleaner energy by using cutting-edge technological innovations, longer-lasting products that can be repaired, recycled and reused, a more accessible and more green public transport. Next slide, please. Priority 2 is the Green Deal priority, as it's covering 5 specific objectives, thus prioritizing joint actions, joint development, joint solution that is on a transnational level within the following areas: energy efficiency, renewable energy, smart energy systems, grids and storage, circular economy, and not at least multimodal urban mobility. Before moving on to the next slide, you will see, as you will see now on the PowerPoint slide, that there are 5 different labels on the left-hand side. These 5 labels are simply referring to each of the specific objectives I just mentioned. So these 5 labels will now follow in the coming PowerPoint slides in order for you to see where each challenge, action and impact are addressed and how they affect each specific objective. The next few slides will now focus on how this priority tackles and identify challenges, foreseen actions and foreseen impacts. Next slide, please. Promoting energy efficiency and achieve energy savings in the fight against climate change is a key challenge for our program. In stimulating this change, we have acknowledged that there are a number of sectors with high energy savings, notably heating, cooling, industry, and various energy services, which also puts additional emphasis on the public sector in order to pave the way towards the future energy savings. Closely related to energy efficiency, we are also addressing renewable energy. Here the key challenge is to developing a power sector based largely on renewable sources. With renewable sources, we mainly referring towards the increased use of biomass, biofuels, wind, wave, and tidal energy, just to mention a few. In particular, the increased take-up of technological solutions are still considered as a bottleneck for renewable energy in general. The third pillar of the energy-related specific objective is related towards smart grids and meters, storage and energy systems. Simply explained, this is all about various energy networks that monitor energy flows and adjust changes in energy supply and demand. Thus, the objective is to match supply and demand and to avoid surges and blackouts. Circular economy is mainly about to make sure that the people and organizations are indeed reducing their consumption footprint and making sure we are increasing the circular material use rate for the future. Thus, increasing and improving the uptake of circularity is a key challenge for us. Finally, the fifth component is dealing with the greening and increased access to public transport and multimodal urban mobility solutions in particular. Challenges is to improve overall quality of life, not only in urban areas, but also in rural areas by promoting active mobility solutions such as walking and cycling. Next slide, please. It is important to underline that the examples that I will provide are only examples. This does not mean that if I haven't addressed a particular sector or area where you are involved in, this does not mean it is not eligible for funding. Reach out to me and my colleagues, and we will find out to what extent we can accommodate your project idea within our program. Let's now go into the actions we would like to see in the new program. Buildings are indeed one of the largest sources of energy consumption in Europe, responsible for over a third of EU emissions. Therefore, fostering deployment of renovation of buildings is highly recommended for future actions. Supporting the uptake of various renewable energy technologies are vital for the North Sea. One such example is hydrogen, which can provide the mobility sector with emission-free energy and feedstock, for instance. Energy storage technologies are, as we have said, essential for the North Sea, especially by balancing power grids and saving surplus energy. It will provide a more concrete way of improving energy efficiency and also integrating more renewable energy sources into, for instance, electricity systems, which in the end will hopefully contribute to lower prices for us consumers in the end. Reuse of products and recycling of materials are important for stimulating increased circularity. Components related to electronics, ICT, batteries, plastics, just to mention a few areas, are highly prioritized. Supporting the development of mobility hubs in urban and rural areas, for instance, as focusing on better integration between bus, rail, car and bike sharing, as well as green modes of urban transport and rural and urban linkages are key actions within the sustainable multimodal urban mobility priority. Next slide, please. So, as you have heard and seen, and also as outlined and explained, the priority 2 is the Greendale priority. This is the common denominator in this priority. And what we want to see here is joint development, joint actions, joint solutions via pilots and strategies and action plans on transnational level. And just to give you a short idea of what we want to see in terms of impact, as well as to summarize this priority in a nutshell, the foreseen and desirable impact, what we want to see is, among others, to improving the energy performance within our buildings and energy savings across all sectors and areas, developing the full potential of power sector based large on renewable energy sources, also to building the interconnected energy systems as presented earlier on. We also need to be able to continue boosting the eco-design of products and making sure that we are reusing them and recycling them. And we are also looking at improving the accessible and green mobility solution across urban and rural areas. And with this said, I will now thank you for your attention, and I now hand over to my esteemed colleague, Peter.
Thank you, Jesper, and hello to everybody. My name is Peter Ratz, and I'm representing now the rural connection in the program because I stuck in my village because of the snow conditions in Denmark. Now we are moving on to priority 3 in the program. Climate change is happening, as we all know, and what we can do is, on one hand, to act rather long-term by reducing our emissions as it was introduced under priority 2. On the other hand, on rather shorter term, we should create more resilience in the area. The program sees the common need to act both in protection of people living in the area and protection of the nature, which provides basic assets and benefits in the area. Under this priority, the participating countries have identified 2 specific objectives. The first one being climate adaptation, disaster risk prevention, resilience with ecosystem-based approaches. What kind of challenges do we face in the area in this regard? Next slide, please. There are a couple of waves recently facing towards us or towards our area, but maybe the biggest wave, and which one stays with us for a while, is climate change. We see seasonal extremes in the precipitation in the last decades, we can say, which triggers more severe flooding and drought events almost every year in the last couple of years. It also has a negative effect on ecosystems that require fresh water, and of course coastal and mountain erosion, just to think about landslides, are triggered also by those changes. So it is more or less all about the water, too much water or lack of water, and we should be more resilient. We should adopt our region to these conditions. The next slides, please. What we can do is, under this specific objective, at least with our limited resources, we could address flood resilience measures in the area, catchment management of groundwater and surface waters, ecosystem services and aquatic freshwaters. These are just group of actions, and of course there are plenty of other effects, what I haven't mentioned in the previous slide, triggered by the climate change, but all those actions can be actually addressed within this specific objective. We can move on to the next slide. What impact do we expect from the future projects to deliver? First of all, improved resilience against flooding and the triggered erosion. Hopefully, more and more nature-based solutions to be taken up. Protection of freshwater resources, both in terms of quality and quantity, and adoption or adapted ground and surface waters to the very big fluctuations in water levels. This is more or less about the first specific objective under this priority. And now we are going to the next specific objective, which is dealing with preservation of nature, biodiversity and green infrastructure, and also reduction of pollution in the area. If we move to the next slide, the very same structure we see here, the challenges we are facing. Functions of the ecosystem services are under huge pressure, mostly triggered by the population density and urbanization in the area, or high intensity of land use by agriculture, transport corridors, and industrial investments. A very specific topic we are also covering under this specific objective is pollution in general, but especially of the marine environment. Think about microplastics or leaking munition under the sea. What actions can we do within this specific objective? Again, this is just 3 groups of actions. Restoration of marine biodiversity by protecting nature reserves, further protect nature reserves, or establishing new protected areas. Ecosystems and biodiversity in rural and urbanized landscapes. Again, taking the ecosystem services as a priority. Sustainable management of ecosystems and protection of the environment. So all actions or project ideas falling under these headlines, so to say, should address this specific objective. What impact do we expect to be delivered? The next slide, please. Take up of management methods, improving conservation and restoration of ecosystems, both in land and in marine environment. Ecosystem services integrated in maritime spatial plans in the North Sea Basin. So it is also a spatial planning exercise, so to say, to integrate those ideas. And mitigating environmental problems, for example, marine pollution, as I already mentioned. These 2 specific objectives in this priority are interconnected, as you can see. So there is not a big problem if you actually covering both specific objectives. You should be able to decide which is the main direction you are working, and what type of actions you mainly implement during the project implementation. Then you will be able to decide which specific objective you submit your application. This is about priority 3. I'm happy to answer your questions later on. And now we are going to a very interesting 4th priority of the program, explained by Annemieke.
Yes, thank you very much, Peter. And indeed, our last priority is priority 4, which is a rather novel priority. It's about governance. And there's only one specific objective in this priority. So if you choose priority 4, you don't have to choose between different specific objectives. And this priority about governance was added to the program because many challenges the region is facing are highly complex and linked to many different sectors such as energy, food, water, transport, trade, housing, and so on. And solving these complex challenges requires collective action by many different stakeholders and countries with heterogeneous interests, priorities, regulations, and standards. The region needs to transfer individual pilot actions, R&D, and demonstration initiatives of plenty different solutions jointly into large-scale implementation action. In other words, all knowledge, experience, and resources available in a wide range of actors need to be orchestrated transnationally. If we see all these different solutions as pieces of a puzzle, priority 4 projects are expected to help bringing those different pieces together. It is all about coordinating, aligning, and strengthening our efforts transnationally to tackle joint challenges. And to demonstrate this priority, I've come up with an example which is related to the Flemish, as we were supposed to be in Bruges last week. And it is maybe a seemingly minor but still very important challenge. Next slide, please. The challenge is to bring good quality Belgian waffles to every city in the North Sea region, because it's, of course, first need for our citizens in the region. So let's see who can help us with addressing this challenge. And first we have Marieke, and Marieke is from Bruges. And she has many years of experience with making waffles and has a very good recipe as well to make waffles. Then we have Harold. Harold owns a restaurant in Bergen, Norway. And there the demand for good quality Belgian waffles is very high. But unfortunately, Harold doesn't know how to make the perfect waffles. Then we have Esme. Esme is from France. And she is a teacher and looking for a good training course to teach her students on how to make good quality Belgian waffles. And lastly, we have Morten from Denmark. Morten's restaurant is serving the waffles already, but with a topping of lakrice, and the Danes will know what I'm talking about. And this is, of course, very popular among the Danes. And he would like to this way of serving waffles to be approved by the international certification body of Belgian waffles. So together, all these people have a lot of potential to address the challenge to make Belgian waffles available throughout the North Sea region. So the technical solution is already there, as Marieke has the perfect recipe. But the key of the solution is to exchange knowledge, forming networks, and develop a joint long-term strategy. And this could be done as a project in priority 4. So to summarize, next slide, please. Another next slide. Joint challenges we are facing is that the region needs to coordinate, align, and strengthen efforts transnationally to tackle joint challenges. And this should be done by coordinating individual solutions and embedding them in long-term strategies, action plans, and thematic fields. And when we look at the actions that are expected in priority 4, next slide, please. There are 3 main types of actions. First of all, to establish or strengthen networks in the region. Then it's about increasing capacity in governance actors, including citizens, so that they are more able to participate in governance. And then there's the link to existing and new initiatives that are already in the region. And projects could either combine solutions from existing projects or also set the stage for new future projects in the region. So the impact that is expected from priority 4 projects, next slide please, is first of all through the establishment or strengthening of networks, better coordination, and better multi-level governance. Then through capacity building, we expect to see increased capacity in governance stakeholders. And lastly, by connecting to other projects and initiatives, we expect to see increased durability and transferability of individual solutions. So that is priority 4 in a nutshell. And then I'll now hand over to Hans, who will tell us a little bit more about the spotlight teams.
Yes, thank you, Annemiek, for this very nice presentation, and all the other colleagues for introducing our program priorities. My name is Hans Wevers, and I would like to tell you a bit more about the spotlight teams, which are a new cross-cutting item in our program. And we have 3 spotlight teams. The first one is digitalization, the second one, rural-urban linkages, and the third one, strengths and weaknesses in the North Sea basin. Next slide, please. Good. As an introduction, as said, the spotlight teams represent new dimensions across the priorities. These teams are strategic of strategic relevance to the European Commission, but also to our North Sea program. And the spotlight teams are very useful for us to identify synergies between the projects which take place under different priorities. Next slide, please. Good. The first spotlight team, digitalization. Can I have the next slide, please? This is where we aim to promote the digital agenda of the European Commission. So the spotlight team 1, digitalization, highlights digital solutions in the North Sea Basin. It also should take up the digital transition with a full and fair potential to people, businesses, and public authorities. And finally, it should contribute to the development of digital technologies implemented through our projects. Can we go to spotlight team 2, the rural-urban linkages? We ask our projects to pay attention to rural-urban linkages, and we actively want to foster regional development in an inclusive way. This is done by This is more and more important because for inclusive territorial development. We want to optimize flows of people, goods, and knowledge, but also flows between the sectors. And finally, we want to address our projects to assist in strengthening in the territorial cohesion by this. We go to spotlight team 3. Spotlight team 3 is about the strengths and challenges in the North Sea Basin. Thereby, we aim to address marine and maritime challenges from different angles. Spotlight team 3, which includes offshore sustainable energy resources to achieve the Greendale objectives. Moreover, we want to foster innovation in port logistics and shipping, tourism and recreation, and fishing and aquaculture. And finally, we would like to ask our projects to highlight the interaction between land and sea environment and the interrelation with human activities. Good. How to implement these spotlight teams? We will encourage the projects to include the spotlight teams in our activities. Can I have the next slide? Thereby, we will have a targeted call in the future targeted call in our program period to highlight these spotlight teams. Also, we want to build a project community network around specific teams. And finally, we want to emphasize that spotlight teams are not obligatory. They are part of your application, but in the end, they will not be part of the assessment of your project application. And finally, I would like to highlight some examples already which take place in our current projects, looking at spotlight teams. For instance, in priority 1, we have the Blink project under the priority 1 Thinking Growth, and this is all about blockchain in government. Another example under priority 4 is the Green Transport and Mobility project GPATRA, which is about green passenger transport in rural areas. So this was my presentation on spotlight teams. I'm also happy to answer questions about these later on, and I give the floor back to Christopher.
Thank you so much, Hans. Hope everybody can hear me. Just a technical glitch. Now we all know what the priorities are all about. We also know about these cross-cutting themes, so that should be cut out for us. Let's move on to the next point on the agenda. Now that we know about the priorities and these cross-cutting themes, we should also pay attention to the project management section in the application form. And for this, Marie and Jenny, they will take us through some good points to remember. So Marie and Jenny, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Christopher, and welcome everyone. We are having a short intervention on project management for you now, and project management is a very important aspect of a successful application or of an successful project. And the question you might ask yourself is hidden on the next slide: how and where to include project management in the application form. My name is Jenny, And I'm here today with our very new colleague, Marie. Welcome, Marie. And we have actually an answer for you to this question. But before we dive into the details, I have a warning for you. And the warning is especially dedicated to the ones of you that are familiar with the current setup, with the current application forms in the current program. Because as you might know, there is a dedicated work package at the moment for project management, also known as work package 1. And here comes the twist. This will no longer be the case in the future program, in the future application forms. But as I've mentioned already, we have a new colleague, Marie. We have new application forms. So I think there couldn't be a better fit than you, Marie, introducing our audience to the new application form, or especially the parts of the new application form that is dealing with project management.
Absolutely, Jenny. So let me start. The way to present project management information is actually pretty easy and straightforward, because instead of having an entire work package for it, you have a specific section in the application form entitled Project Management. And here there are many questions, or not so many, 3 main questions to be answered. So we can start now with the first question, actually. And it's on the coordination of your project. So here you will have to explain who will be responsible for the coordination. Also, if you have any other management structures, so that can be thematic groups or work package managers, you will be able to present them in this section. You will also have to explain how the internal communication will work and how you will ensure transnational cooperation within your partnership. And finally, for all the risks you will have identified and that could come up during the implementation of your project, then you will have to present the measures you will take to mitigate them. The second question is on the measures you will take to ensure quality in your project. So here the point is to describe specific approaches and processes, as well as responsible partners who will be in charge of these measures. Also, if you plan on having any type of project evaluation, then you will be able to present the scope and the purpose of this evaluation. And the third question is very straightforward as well, and is on financial management and reporting procedures. So here the main point is to present the way you foresee financial management of the project and the reporting procedures for activities and budgets, both within the partnership and towards the program. There are also other elements to present, and that can be, for instance, definition of responsibilities, deadlines in financial flows, reporting flows, project-related transfers, reclaims, etc.
That sounds indeed quite straightforward. So no longer a work package, but a special section on project management in the application form. Now, my question is that it, Marie, or is there maybe even more?
Yeah, actually, there is another section where project management related information should be provided. And this section is the project partnership. Yes, and here the focus is on the structure of the partnership. So you will have to describe how the roles will be distributed, but also who will be responsible for what.
Great. So yet another possibility to underline the project management of your future project. Thanks a lot, Marie. And the last remark from my end is that project management, of course, it doesn't have anything to do with the content of your project, but it's actually equally important. So think it through carefully, because it will also be part of the assessment criteria later on. Especially when talking about full applications and small-scale projects. So keep that in mind. And I think that's it from our end, right?
Yeah, on that note, good luck with your application.
Yes, good luck. And we are handing back to Christopher now.
Thank you so much, Jenny and Marie, for this nice intervention. It should be clear to all of us how we should structure our description of project management, in the new types of applications that we're going to operate. We have now received these good points, and let's move on to some other good points to remember. So as we all know, communication has always been has been an activity in our previous projects. However, the focus on good communication has increased even further, and now communication is becoming an inherent part of all projects. Sophie, can you give us some really good points on how we should tackle this in context of the application form? I think you should unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you, Christopher. And hello, everyone. Indeed, I can explain a bit about that. So today, I hope to convince you to see communication as a top priority for your application and for your future project. Simply because a strong focus on communication will help you to succeed when you apply and when you implement your project. So I'm going to give you some examples of how you can focus on communication to your best advantage. For starters, let's look at your application as a communication material. Whenever you want to communicate effectively, the first thing you should really do is to be aware of your target group. So let's take a look at your target group for the application. These numbers tell you something about your quite special audience here. The number to the left, number 8, is the minimum number of people who will review your application. First, one of our project advisors will assess your proposal and will produce an assessment report, including a recommendation to either approve or reject your application. And then the member states will also review your application and make up their own minds about whether to approve or reject it. Next slide, please. Sorry. The next number on this slide is number 7. This is the number of votes that will ultimately decide the fate of your application. So the member states will decide whether to approve or reject the application. They may or may not go along with the recommendation from the Secretariat, and ultimately it is the votes of the member states that will decide. And what is important to understand here is that a single vote of rejection will get your application rejected in the end. You need unanimous decision to approve your application. So you really want to convince the whole group here. The last number, the number 0, is the likely number of experts in your field within this group. Now, why is that important? This is important because you, just like the rest of us, is likely to be hit by the curse of knowledge. Next slide, please. This refers to the fact that whenever we possess a large body of knowledge about a certain topic, far above what other people know, then we are prone to thinking that we know less than we do, and that other people know more than they do. And this is risky when you're putting together your application, because you might think that you are putting together something that is really crystal clear, whereas the readers might find that it is rather unclear, because they are lacking some of the knowledge that you have. So how can you avoid that pitfall? Next slide, please. One efficient approach to this is to make your idea relatable, meaning connecting your idea with something that people really know and care about. This will open doors in your readers' minds so they can connect to your idea. And I'll give you some examples of how you can do it. Next slide, please. This is all about bringing your topic closer to the target group. And my top tip is to tell what the solution does rather than talking about how it works. You should present a vision and talk about how you will transform things and how people are going to experience that change, rather than go into detail about how it works. Let's imagine that you are pitching a project about improving LED lighting. A surefire way to kill your audience is to start talking about how this light emission diode is using a semiconductor in which the electrons are having their atomic bonds disrupted. There you already lost your audience. Your funder and your investor doesn't need to know about your project at that level. Actually, it's quite irrelevant. They need to get the knowledge they need to decide whether to approve your project and fund it or not. So it is a much better idea to explain that although LED lighting is very eco-friendly, there is a catch. There is a problem about disrupting circadian rhythms and our sleep. And your project is going to deal with that and reduce that problem. Now we are all ears. Now we really want to learn more about your topic. You have opened the doors in our minds, and we have become closer to your topic. My second tip is a no-brainer. Please use familiar terms, terms that everybody knows, and try to avoid unfamiliar terms. The problem with that is that every time you use an unfamiliar term, you are creating a mental barrier for the reader who is struggling to get to grips with your content. This is self-evident, but I'm mentioning this anyway because you are hit by the curse of knowledge, you might not realize which terms are in fact unfamiliar to your readers. My final tip is an easy one. You can also bring your topic closer to your reader by linking to current trends and events. So for example, with your LED light project, you could link that to the need for a green transition. You could also link it to current trends within human stress levels and sleep deprivation. Okay, so now you know how to make your project relatable and make it really clear and bring it close to your readers. The next thing you need to do is to also convince your readers about the value of your idea and that it is worthwhile funding it. Next slide, please. And to do this, you really need to identify your unique selling points. What is it that makes your project worthwhile funding? What is it that sets it apart? Here are a few examples of what they might be. You might be looking into a new or better solution than what exists out there. And you are really the best placed to explain this because you're the experts. You know what other initiatives are out there trying to improve LED lighting, and you know exactly why your project is adding to the mix and making things even better. Also, if your project design includes a special potential for scaling up, then that is a huge selling point because we are looking for projects that will produce impacts that are growing over time. If you have time tonight, you will be able to watch the ReduStars Awards online. It is at 7:30 p.m. And there are 2 North Sea region projects that are finalists there. The project Begin and the project Dryport are both in the finals, and we're very excited about that. And both of these projects are amazing in terms of creating solutions that can be and are being and have been scaled up. So this is something that is a great selling point. Also, if your project provides added benefits in addition to kind of tackling the main challenge, that is definitely something to add. Let's say your LED lighting improvement will also improve cost efficiency of LED. That is certainly something to mention as well. There can be many other selling points. So you need to go through and the work and identify your own selling points, and then make sure to use them to your advantage in the application form. Next slide, please. Now, let's look at the actual application form and where you can talk about your communication design in your project. The first thing you might notice is that the communication work package has gone, just like the project management work package. Fortunately, this doesn't mean that communication is no longer important. On the contrary, it is extremely important, and it is just structured a bit differently. Next slide, please. So of course, your next question would be, so where should I consider communication in the application form? There are two dedicated spots in which you can explain about communication. So you have to do this in two places. The first place is in the individual work packages. We're now asking you to cover communication as well for that work package. And for your more general or overarching project communication approach, you can use the project management section that Jenny and Marie just introduced. And of course, the budget section is extremely important because you need budget behind your communication activities. Last but not least, there is also the summary section, and this is where you can really pitch your project. Next slide, please. So now let's look in detail at one of these places in the application form where you can talk about communication. So as a novelty, we're asking you to consider communication objectives for each work package, and also to define target groups for those objectives. So let's say that the work package is about training. Then you might set up a communication objective, which is all about attracting participants to your pilot trainings, and another communication objective, which is about disseminating information about the results of the training. And for each work package, there will be a partner who will lead on that, and it will be this partner who will also report on the progress within this communication objective. Next slide, please. So, of course, in addition to the communication for each work package, you still need to also care about the overall communication management for the project as such. This is still very important. And the image you see here is the traditional setup where there would be a leader of a work package for communication who would manage more or less all of the communication that goes on in the project. And then you would have your partners who would lead on the different work packages and would be focused on the outputs that they are producing, and perhaps slightly less on communicating them. What we are hoping to achieve with the new setup is to strengthen communication by involving the partners and the work package leaders more actively in communicating their own work package. And this way also activating their own professional networks. And we think this is going to strengthen communication overall and also break down silos and ensure a tighter cooperation across the project through this shared responsibility. Next slide, please. So the project management module that Jenny and Marie just introduced is also where you can present your general approach to communication. Next slide, please. So there is a text field entitled Communication Approach, which is logically enough also where you can present your approach to communication. And this is to complement the text that you have already entered for each work package. So this is where you can rather present the overall coordination of the communication for the whole project, whether you will have a communication strategy for the project, what kind of platforms and channels are you going to use, are you going to produce special graphics, videos, and photos? These can be huge assets in communicating your project, so I would recommend you to think about that. And of course, there will be certain events that are not linked to a specific work package, such as a kickoff event or a final conference. Next slide, please. Also, within the same text field, I would strongly recommend you to also consider target groups. In addition to the target groups that you have defined for each work package, you should also think about the target groups for the project as such. And here I have highlighted two target groups, citizens and policymakers, because I want to recommend you to specifically consider these two target groups for your project, in addition to all the other target groups that you might have in mind. This is because we can see that projects that do engage with citizens and policymakers are reaping benefits from that. Next slide, please. So once you have planned your communication, then you of course need to also budget for your ambitions. And in order to do this properly, you need to be aware of what we are providing for free to your project. Next slide, please. So we will provide you with a project website, a project logo, and a priority icon, priority slides, and a priority poster. Those of you who are already familiar with our program will quickly see that this is very similar to what we are providing currently. The big difference is going to be with the website, because we are developing a new program website. So the program and project websites will have a new look and feel. And what is important to consider regarding budget is that you might to have, for example, a second website. And in that case, you have to budget for it. For example, if you have special needs for an advanced platform. And you also need to consider that it is mandatory to keep the project website updated. Even if you have a second website, then you will need to keep 2 project websites updated. So these are things to consider as you budget for communication. Next slide, please. Finally, there is also the project summary. And this is where you can really pitch your project and make it shine. This is where you can make your project relatable and use all your unique selling points. I am showing the shape of a diamond here because a diamond is shining because it has been cut. And this is also how you should go about your project summary. Put in all the good stuff and then remove anything that will water down your message, such as unfamiliar terms or lengthy explanations about how it works. It's much better to talk about what it does, because then you can create a pitch that really will open doors and create bridges in our minds. And the beauty of that is that you can use that same pitch to really build your project and create that impact that we see, I'm happy to say we see in many of our projects, including not least our 2 contenders tonight for the Redo Stars Awards. I want to again encourage you to watch live stream tonight. And otherwise, I just want to wish you great luck on your application. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. I think it should be clear to all of us how important communication is. Equally important it is to find the right partners from the beginning and finding the right fit for your project. As a mean to initiate contact between potential partners, Femke will give us an introduction to what we offer from the program in terms of bridging this connection. So Femke, please, the floor is yours once again.
Thank you, Christopher. And just before we move to Q&A, I would like to introduce you to 2 new developments that we have launched since the last webinars. We have launched a project idea section on our website, and we have published the option to book consultations with the project advisors of the Secretariat. If we start with the project idea website, we know that in the current times it is harder to meet, network for new projects, to set up your project team. We have therefore on our website set up a project idea sharing section. And the idea is that you can there briefly outline your project idea, which partners you already have, and what you're looking for. And potential partners can then reach out to you. There is a lot more to enhance this part of the website, but the idea will be further developed with the launch of the new program website that Sophie also mentioned in her presentation. Just to show you where you can find it, I'll share my screen so that you can follow where that is. So if you go to our North Sea region website, you can see this man looking with his binoculars over the North Sea. If you click on that, you will find the project idea sharing section. You have a general introduction here. If you would like to share your project idea on this side as well, we ask you to submit your project idea. On the left, you can click submit project idea, and there is a form that you can fill in, and you can choose under which priority you think you will submit, and then describe your project idea briefly. Please here also remember Sophie's tips on how to describe it, so that people understand what you're trying to do. Please also outline which project partners you've already have, and then describe clearly on what you're looking for. You might still look for partners in our new region, or you might miss a certain university. So please be specific on what kind of organizations and in which region or which country you're looking for. If you've submitted this, we will receive it and make a project idea card of your project idea. And you can see some examples here already in priority 2, one on renewable energy and one on circular economy. So here, everybody that is interested in joining projects can see what is out there, see if it might match with their idea. And you can reach out to the project idea owner by clicking on the project ID card, and you can also find email addresses here. So if you are still looking for partners, please consider to submit your project idea, and we will, as we receive more project ideas, also keep on sharing this on social media so that people can find what you're looking for. Now we have another initiative that I would like to introduce to you. I go back to the main website of the North Sea Region Program. There is one it's very similar, the jellyfish here that you can click. And you have a whole section here on the future program. Please make sure to go through it. There's a lot of information there. One thing I would like to highlight is on the events section. You can see all the videos of the previous webinars, but you also have a link to book a consultation with the project advisor. So if I click that, it goes to the section of our website where you can find more information on reaching out to project advisors. If you still have questions ahead of preparing for call 1, please look at this date, see when you're available, and join either of the open consultation hours, where there always will be a project advisor available online to answer your questions, or a dedicated consultation where it is possible to talk with just your project team about a project idea with a project advisor, and there will be very likely to be also a national contact point in the room to help you with specific questions. If just to divide the two, the open consultations are very much for if you have a question that could potentially be relevant to other projects as well, and the dedicated consultations are if you have specific questions about your project idea and maybe would like to talk about that in private. You can book a dedicated consultation through the doodle links that you can see here. They are divided by priority. And if you have booked a time, please remember that we would very much like to prepare these consultations so that the 15 minutes that you have are used as efficiently as possible and you will get all your answers. So we ask you to at least 1 working day ahead of your consultations to fill in this form so you can describe your project idea to us. And already, if you have specific questions, to put them in so we can prepare. So these are the options that we have on the website. I just want to very briefly go back to the whole sections of the future program and point out to you that in the key documents you can now also find PDFs of the application forms. So there you can already see how the application forms will look like. There might be slight changes, but it gives you a very good idea of how the new applications form look like. So there are 3: expression of interest, full application, and application form for small scale project. That was it from my side. I will give the floor back to Christopher for starting the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Femke, and you are completely right. We are now on the last point of the agenda for today, which is the questions from you. So I have followed the questions being submitted in Slido, and I can see that we have received a lot, so that's really nice. If you have any questions that you haven't asked already, please go to Slido, put them in there. We will answer the questions one by one, and we will use as much time as we can now for answering them. As you can see, the time is getting closer to 11:30. However, I have been granted the permission to continue until 11:40, with the hope that we will then be able to answer all of the questions. If we do not answer all of the questions, you will be able to see them online afterwards in writing. We will provide the answer to them. If you have to leave the event a bit earlier, then you can also revisit the recording from this event, and then you can see the questions that we have answered during the event. The way it's going to work is that my colleagues are putting on questions one by one on the screen, so you can read them. I will then read them out loud, and then I will guide the questions to one of my colleagues that will then provide an answer. So I think we should just go ahead and see how many questions we can have answered. The first question is, when is the decision for call 1, and from what date can a project start? And for this question, I would like to invite my colleague Sarah to just give a short reflection.
Yes, thank you, Christopher. In fact, the decision for call 1, or the decisions for call 1 will take place in 2 parts. At the moment, we are not publishing the dates, but we are giving a rough timeline for when those decisions will be made. So as I said during my intervention earlier, the deadline for our expressions of interest for regular projects and for small scale projects is the 7th of March. And the expectation is that the decisions for these applications by the monitoring committee or the program preparation group will be made toward the end of June. The deadline for the second stage or full application of regular projects is expected to be made, the decision for those is expected to be made toward the end of September. Now, what this depends on is, in fact, a formal approval of our program. And our program is still in that process. So this is why we are not making this information yet public, because it hasn't, in fact, been set yet in stone. But the expectation is that we will have a decision-making meeting at the end of June for expressions of interest in small-scale projects, and toward the end of September for full applications.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think that was as clear as it can get at this stage. Let's get the next question on screen. Example of application forms can be found on the website, but only as PDF files. Can you make them available as Word files? Currently, and I'll just take this question, you're absolutely right. The versions you find online is only in PDF. The primary reason for this is that the final versions, and the ones that you will be asked to fill in, you will only find in the monitoring system. So the latest templates can be found in the monitoring system and I think it was Sarah that mentioned this earlier. You can already now go to our monitoring system. The direct address is oms.interactnorthsea.eu, and there you can create an account, which will enable you to already start now on the expression of interest and the small scale projects. And by doing so, you can very easily get a first-hand experience on what it requires. Next question, please. What is the deadline for call 2 full applications in the case the EOI for call 1 is approved? Again, I would like to invite my colleague Sarah to provide an answer to this.
For Christopher. And this date or this deadline for call 2 has not yet been decided. This is another topic that will be discussed by the program preparation group in further meetings. Again, it depends slightly on the approval of the program. So please stay tuned for that. We will publish as soon as it is concrete and we can make it public.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Let's move on to the next question. Fact sheet 1 mentioned that shared costs need to be handled outside of the reporting system. Is us as lead partners withholding payments still an option? Also liking the thank you after this. It is indeed still an option that you as a lead partner can withhold part of the reimbursement to your project. However, it has to be an agreement that you make with your partnership exactly how it is that you're going to handle the shared cost. In the previous program, we have made use of a partnership agreement that we have produced as a template that all partnerships could make use of. And we will also do the same for the coming program. And we strongly encourage that you will use this form to be very explicit on items such as liabilities and also shared cost arrangements. And the point is that then you have a common document that you have all signed off on, and you know exactly how the reimbursement structure within your project partnership is going to look like. Can we have the next question? When will the full application be open in the monitoring system? The plan is that the full application template will be online together with the launch of call 1. And by that we mean it will be available mid-December. Next question. In the case that the maximum number, is it the case that the maximum number of partners is 10? I would like to invite my colleague Sarah to have some reflections on the number of partners in projects. And I guess this is, we're talking about regular projects here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would assume so too, but I will just do a little bit comparison. For regular projects, there is no limit per se. What we are expecting as a general good rule is project partnerships of between, say, 9 and 15 partners. We find that that's roughly the average of the projects that we have right now that can work quite well and quite efficiently. Just in addition to that, for small scale projects, the limit is between 3 and 7 partners. And just a little bit of an addition, we expect partners from at least 3 countries in the North Sea region program.
Thank you so much for the clear answer, Sarah. Let's take the next question. If there's no more VPM, I guess we are talking about a work package for project management. How do we declare these related expenses that are quite huge? Coordination, steering committee, FSC, or equivalent. The thing is, in the North Sea program, and that has also been the case in the 5B, you do not necessarily attribute your budget to a specific work package. What we're interested in is to look at the partnership, or sorry, the application form as a whole, and by that I mean we compare activities with budget. And it also means that for other activities, you're not asked to attribute specific budget. So just because there's no work package for project management, it still means that we still consider costs being eligible for these costs. And of course, you should plan them also in your budget. Can we get the next question? Thanks. In the expression of interest on Is the expression of interest on 7 March mandatory stage 1 for the second call, or is it an optional stage 1 for the first call? If I can ask Sarah to briefly reflect on this.
Yes, absolutely, Christopher. I think I understand that there might have been a bit of confusion. So let me clarify. In general, we have 2 types of projects. We have regular projects and we have small scale projects. The small scale projects have only a 1-step application procedure. For our regular projects, we have a 2-stage procedure. Generally, we expect you to submit an expression of interest or a somewhat reduced form of the application. And if it is approved, then you move to the 2nd stage, which is called the full application. But for call 1 only, we will allow you to apply as an expression of interest or a full application. So you can go straight to the full application in call 1. If you submit an expression of interest in call 1 by the 7th of March, and it is approved, as we said, roughly toward the end of June, then you would move on to the 2nd stage or the full application in call 2. Again, we don't have the dates yet for call 2, but we hope to make them public soon. And therefore, I hope I have answered this question as I understand it.
I am sure you have, Sarah, and I know a lot of our viewers now are, panicking and scribbling down whatever we're saying in terms of calls and type of applications. As an answer to this, I can also say, please go and read fact sheet number 18, which is the application procedures. From that fact sheet, it's also very clear on exactly what are the requirements for qualifying as a regular project. Let's move on to the next question. So this is a very hands-on. I submitted a project idea a few days ago. It is still not visible on the website. How long will it take to get published? And for this, I would like to invite my colleague Femke to just put a few words on the procedure behind this.
Thank you, Christopher. Yes, it normally takes only 1 or 2 days. We have been working hard on getting this webinar up, so sometimes it might take a bit longer, but we follow it closely, and it will be up very soon, and you will always receive an email when it is on the website. I hope that answers your question.
I think it does. Thank you so much, Femke. Let's get the next question. Can any partner bill the other partners on shared management costs, or can this only be done by a lead partner? So we are targeting, again, shared costs and costs that do not really relate to what is going to be reported to us as a program. And hence, I would like to revert back to my previous answer. Please detail these specifications within your partnership. What is it that we as organizations can allow one another? Also to safeguard that you do not end up in a situation where there are miscommunication in terms of shared costs and how they should be reimbursed among the partnership. I think that was an answer to the next question, please. Regarding priority 3.1, I don't see a challenge regarding reducing heat stress. Is this also a challenge for North Sea region? I hope so. And for this, I would like to invite my colleague Peter to reflect on an answer.
Yes, thank you, Christopher. And just very quickly, yes, your hopes are met. Of course, I haven't mentioned all the potential actions and possible challenges what can be addressed in this specific objective. The program will fund actions, specific thematic fields, monitoring, managing, preventing natural phenomena triggered by climate change. I mentioned maybe landslides, for example, coastal erosion, but forest fires or urban heat islands can be other examples. So yes, it is a challenge, of course, and it is also written in the draft program actually, so you can find it on the draft content of the program on the website of the program. And further details, please go there and read this document, because you will find these kind of content-related answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. Peter, stay tuned.
Yes, I know.
Because I sense there's a question coming up that you are going to answer. And just for the viewers to know, we will answer 2 more questions, and then we will wrap up the event. So next question, please. What is the size number of partners required for a small-scale project?
What is the size? I can answer this question in terms of budget, which is a total budget of maximum 500,000 euros. We recommend to have a minimum budget of 200,000 euros total budget, but this is just a recommendation. The upper limit is set in stone. As for the partners, number of partners, as already mentioned by Sarah, it is between 3 and 7 maximum partners. And one more thing regarding small-scale projects is the length or the duration of the project, which is 18 months maximum. I hope I answered all the questions.
Thank you so much, Peter. I think we got all of the essentials in place. And let's move on to the last question. How can we put forward our skills and position ourselves as potential partners without having a project idea? For this, I would actually like to invite my colleague Femke to put a few words on what are the possibilities here.
Yes, thank you, Christopher. This is an option that we would really like to add. Unfortunately, this is a part that is not ready, but it is of course great that you're out there and you would like to put yourself forward as a partner. Maybe it would be an idea to make a slightly broader project idea. So we can actually publish that on the project idea website, and then people can find your expertise, and we can also put in there that you would like to join as a potential partner and maybe not necessarily take on the lead of this project. So hopefully in that way we can accommodate your needs here as well. And I hope that there will be many of you share your project ideas, and who knows, you'll find one that you actually fit in with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Femke. And I think in relation to this, also please reach out to your national contact points, because they are also very much aware of what's going on in the various member states. And perhaps you do not have an idea, but then take it as a possibility to actually meet and greet with your national contact point. They know who you are, which organization you are representing, and also the thematic fields that you might be interested in. This means that you will also enable them to bridge a connection and establish further collaboration with the other partners, also because they link back to a network of national contact points. I think that was the last question. There are tons of questions that we haven't asked in Slido, but that's actually really good, because it means that you are very keen and interested in learning more about our first call for application. And it also enables us to already now start an FAQ section on our website, and by doing so answer the questions. Thank you so much. It was really good questions. We appreciate all of them. But we hope with this event today that we have in fact enabled you to get ready for call 1. And as mentioned, the recording of the event today, it will be made available as soon as possible. I would like to thank all of my colleagues that has presented today, and please feel free to reach out to any of us that you may seem fit. And also the recording from the previous webinars. Femke already mentioned it, showed us on the website. I have mentioned them, Sarah has mentioned them. Please go and watch the recordings. Also the fact sheets. Fact sheets are very important because that's the program rules. We have a webinar on it, but we also have now the first 20 fact sheets available. The call for applications will open soon, So please stay tuned. We will announce it on our website as soon as the call is officially open. You can already now start preparing your application, at least the EOI and the small scale project, in the monitoring system. Not much to say then. Thank you so much for joining today. And we are really looking forward to the future where at some point we will be able to meet face to face. No longer a virtual hand. We don't have any more old hands. We only have new hands. And that'll be really nice when we see one another. So thank you so much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.